Good evening, Ayanda, and thank you so much for joining us. Ayanda, it must have been a difficult day for the family hearing the news of their son's passing, as we see in the following clip. What time did they hear about this and from whom?
Well, absolutely. It was indeed very difficult news for the family. Unbelievable, to say the least. We heard from Senzo's cousin, who was the designated family spokesperson, that it was during the night that, in fact, they first got a call from a friend saying that Senzo had been injured and had been rushed to hospital. And later they learned the news that Senzo had passed away. It has really been a shock. Since this morning, his family has really been unable to come to terms with Senzo's passing away. In fact, when we arrived there this morning, very sadly, his mother, who since the early hours of this morning has been crying uncontrollably, she was then rushed off to hospital to be treated for trauma. Fortunately, later on in the afternoon, she then was discharged from the hospital and returned home. In the morning, during that morning hours, as family came in, his sister, his brothers, you could just see as the media were waiting outside, didn't have really much time to speak to them. They were crying inconsolably inside the house from we were looking through. And I tell you, it has really been a difficult day, really difficult for the family to accept. As you heard from that clip, and in fact for myself as a journalist, it was really one of the saddest interviews one has done in a very long time, when a father says he wishes that he was dead, when he said that Senzo was his life, he was the pillar of strength for the family, that their survival depended on him. Senzo was responsible for his entire family, his relatives, and it went even beyond Senzo's family. It was his neighbors. He took good care of them. We understood from an elderly woman that whenever he was there, he would go and buy her food and arrive with plastic bags. So families that were in need, his immediate neighbors, he was always there and willing to lend a hand, always calling to check up on them and find out, how they were doing. So really, this has been an incredible loss for his family. Even small kids that were neighbors, small kids who came from the primary school that Senzo went to, who also then, once they'd heard the news after school, they all made their way to Senzo's house. And you could just see even small children saying that, this was shocking, that they looked up to Senzo, many of them saying they loved soccer and they were playing soccer. They started actually playing soccer just because the Senzo was their idol. And it has really been a sad day, a very traumatic for the family.
Now, Ayanda, the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Senzo Meyiwa, was scheduled to meet the family this afternoon. Has that meeting taken place, and what did he say to them?
Yes, the meeting did take place later this afternoon. The Premier Senzo Meyiwa was accompanied by the entire cabinet of MECs here in the province of KwaZulu-Natal as well. Of course, throughout the day we were waiting for Dr. Ivan Khoza. He was also part of that delegation, as well as Begicele, who's now Minister of Forestry and Fisheries, that's his former National Police Commissioner, and many ANC leaders, other sports people in the sports fraternity, as I said, various political parties. They were also accompanied. It was really a big delegation of dignitaries that came through. They then came to send their condolences to the Meyiwa family, just to say that, of course, this has indeed been incredible loss for South Africa. But more importantly, I think for KZN, Senzo is a local boy. Senzo grew up, he was born in Mnumlazi. This is his home. So in as much as he had left Durban and he was living in Johannesburg, he now belonged to South Africa. He played for Orlando Pirates. Many people probably not know or forget that Senzo is a local boy. And I think to the Premier, this is an incredible loss for the province of KwaZulu-Natal. And he went to relay that that to the family, and to say that the government would do everything in its power to assist the family in whatever they needed. So the family, the Premier, beg your pardon, was really taken aback. He said that it was a great shock to him as well. So that was literally the message that they had come, and the condolences that come to bring to Senzo's family.
Now, Ayanda, before we let you go, Meyiwa, as you mentioned, was born and he grew up in Umlazi until joining Orlando Pirates as a junior player. Have you managed to get a chance to speak to any of his friends that he grew up with or people that he played with before he made the move from Umlazi to Johannesburg?
We spoke to a lot of community, members in the area, a lot of youngsters as well, not some who played with him directly, but people who, maybe I should also just mention that Senzo had a tournament that every December when he was home, he would have a tournament where he'd bring together youngsters from across Umlazi, and he sponsored that tournament. So it also brought in some of the friends and some of the elder guys who are living in his street and also in other parts of Umlazi, and they would then take part in the tournament that he sponsored. So we were speaking to them, and of course they said, that they had great plans for this tournament. In fact, he wanted to grow it. Senzo was very, very keen on sports development. He was very, very keen on young people, bringing young people into sports, and they actually had sat down just recently, in fact, and he was discussing plans, their plans of how they wanted to take that forward, how they wanted to assist youngsters in the area. So basically saying that it's an incredible loss, even on that front, that these young people every December looked forward to being part of this tournament. And of course, it was not just December. They play throughout the year. They have kits, they have things like boots. It takes these youngsters off the street, which is, I think, his main goal in bringing them together. It was not just for them to become, hopefully, professional one day, but his main aim was that he wanted to contribute to building young people, to taking out young people from the streets. As we know, Umlazi is just one of those townships, of course, where there is a high crime rate and drugs, etc. So it was very important for him, and we saw that. We saw the sadness, of these guys saying that that was so important to him, and really they're at a loss now at how, basically what will happen now, what will happen to the tournament that Senzo had started. And I presume that this is one of the things that they want to continue, his legacy. This is what Senzo has started, and they cannot now let down these young people. So on their side, it was really, really sad for them to
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. That was SABC reporter Ayanda Mhlongo joining us live from Durban.